So, only a few years ago, this was pretty much my life. I was pedaling hard, but not really going anywhere. I was journeying through life without a real sense of purpose, direction, or passion. As a kid, I was a bit of a semi-pro dreamer. I always wanted to live this extraordinary life, but never quite believed that I could. I was dreaming, but not doing. I aspired to have all the nice things in life, the nice house, the nice job, the lovely clothes, the good-looking boyfriend on the arm. I self-medicated with hundreds of pairs of shoes and handbags. I spent thousands on nail extensions and invested 11 years in relationships that frankly looked good on the outside. But really, I was stuck in this cycle, hollow, unfulfilled, but just thought, well, maybe this is as satisfying as life gets. I'm ashamed to say I lived very much for me, myself, and I. I thought doing good in the world was what other people did. I didn't think that I could ever make a difference. And then I went to the cinema and I watched the film Taken. And I watched this film thinking, well, it's just a film, as Liam Neeson's daughter and her friend were taken and sold into sex slavery. And my jaw was on the floor. There are an estimated 30 million people in modern-day slavery today, and that's when my world stopped. After my second long-term relationship ended, after 11 years, for the first time, I was available. I was available to be disturbed. It's as if my eyes were open to something bigger than myself. And I just felt this compelling urgency to want to make a difference, but this familiar cycle wasn't this familiar road that I was on anymore. I was railroaded, and life took on a whole new direction. I thought, if slavery does go on, how do I not know about it? I thought William Wilberforce took care of slavery hundreds of years ago. But the thing is, modern-day slavery, it just looks different today. It's hidden. Human trafficking is a $150 billion industry. That's bigger than the whole US banking system. It's more profitable than Google and the big oil industry. One child forced to beg on the streets of London can earn a trafficker over £100,000 a year. And I thought, well, if this really does go on, surely it's in faraway, poverty-stricken countries. And yes, it is, and I've visited many of them. I've heard the stories of many men, women, and children, and they are often the most vulnerable, the poor who are the most likely to be groomed, whether it's that they're forced to labor for the clothes that we wear, or the children forced to pick cocoa beans on the west coast of Africa for the chocolate that we consume, or the farming or the fishing industry, cannabis cultivation, or women and young girls forced to service 30, 40 men a night locked in brothels against their will. But the fact is, human trafficking is right here on our doorstep. It happens in all of our communities and neighborhoods. Just a few miles from here, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, 20, mainly men, were rescued from the farming and agricultural industry. And last week's big breaking news story found 1,400 children sexually exploited in Yorkshire, not far from our neighborhoods and communities. And so I was completely overwhelmed. How could little old me ever make a difference to this hugely overwhelming injustice? And so I looked at what was in my hands, what were my skills, my talents, and my areas of influence. And I love sport, I work in sport, I play sport, but by no means am I a professional athlete. I love social media, many of you are probably on it, and I work in the media. So those were the things that came naturally to me. And so I was running along the Thames with my best friend Steph. Her ex-boyfriend had rowed the Atlantic. And I remember just stretching out at the end of my run. And she said, Julia, should we row the Atlantic? And I was like, yeah, as if it was like grabbing a coffee from Starbucks, not quite knowing that I'd signed myself up for what's known as the world's toughest rowing race. Anyway, Steph ended up pulling out for various reasons. I put together then an international crew of 6 girls, which then became 5, lots of twists and turns, hence having to write a book. But we set off on this dream of rowing the Atlantic, but often it's in the doing part that a lot of people fail. And in our race, there was a boat called Dream It, Do It. And I've thought a lot about the name of that boat because a lot of people dream dreams, but it's in the doing part where a lot of people fail to reach their full potential and their destiny. And I've kind of thought, well, you know, what is it that fulfills a dream? And there is actually no secret formula. I've kind of learnt that it's just simply a hard work, it's having a whatever it takes attitude and sheer grit, determination, and mixed with a bit of passion. And I wasn't on this safe place, this life as normal anymore. You know, you can dream all the dreams you want while you're in that familiar safe place, but until you resolve to get off that safe place, only then will your dreams become a reality. And the fact is, even in the doing part of the dream, there will be potholes in the road, there will be valleys to go through, there will be hills to climb, and even mountains to overcome. And even when we're in the middle of the dream, there will be challenges.
Yeah, what an amazing journey it's been already, immense highs and lows. The first week was just, we couldn't even get the camera out because we were all just so sick, and all the hatches have been flooded, and what else? Just so many leaks everywhere in all the cabins and stuff. So a lot of the electrics went down, and then we had hardly any battery just because the solar panels were hardly charging, and immense highs, like just surfing 30-40 foot waves. You feel like you're on top of the world, and just having to go to the toilet on a bucket in those conditions, and cooking, and just really shows what you're made of and stuff. So this is literally as big as the cabin is. You can see my feet down there and all our sort of personal belongings there, and Katie's that side. So yeah, it's really, you have to take it a day at a time. And just on those low days, I've had many moments, and then you kind of just regroup and get your mind together. And just because this ocean is so vast, and you really get quite overwhelmed when you realise that you're going to be here day in, day out for like 40-45 days. And you know, the stars are incredible at night. We've had just some beautiful, beautiful sunrises, but on the whole so far it's just been one big hard slog, to be honest, and bodies are now starting to ache. And you know, we're doing really well as a team. It's literally a watch by watch system, just taking it 2 hours at a time, and really looking forward to the rest of the time. Over and out. Speak to you soon. Bye.
When there is pain with purpose, it changes everything. That figure of 30 million people in modern day slavery is so unfathomable and kind of comprehensible but when you hear the story of one person, it changes everything. And for me, that one person was Alejandra. And Alejandra was over in London, and I had the privilege of listening to her story. And she grew up in a very ordinary family, not hugely poor, but in Mexico City, and she went just a few hours north of Mexico City and went for a job with better prospects, better pay, but the job that she thought was the job that better job wasn't a legitimate job. She was tricked to and lied to. She was broken in, raped repeatedly until her psyche was broken down, and she was forced to work as a prostitute, locked and away in a brothel for 5 years, servicing men day in, day out. And she was urinated on, degraded, had scorpions chucked on her, and forced to do things that nobody should ever have to do. And when it was tough on the ocean, in the middle of the night, on the 2 a.m. watch, with the waves lashing on you and you wondering why you're in the middle of the ocean, I had to remember why I started. And Alejandra, I had to remember her, and it made my pain pale into insignificance. There was purpose in the pain. And I've learned that with public victories come private battles. When you step 1 foot out of the ordinary to change something in this world, the only thing that I can guarantee you is that there will be setbacks, there will be challenges, and life can sometimes chuck cruel, unexpected blows. And a lot of people hear about the glory of these 2 world records and this feat, and that's all well and good. But actually, the moment I said, yep, I'm going to row the Atlantic, literally, the following week, my mum got really ill and we suffered our darkest family crisis. So there were these 2 parallel journeys going hand in hand, but it was just that sheer grit mixed with passion to keep this dream alive that kept me enduring and kept me going. It was Christmas Day, and we hadn't spoken to our friends and family for weeks, and we spoke to them for the first time, and I was really emotional and upset. And I remember just getting back on the oars and rowing away, and I was just gazing onto the ocean a little bit more attentively than usual. And my eye was drawn to a little bit of light shining, and I looked, and it was this light blue gin bottle 6 feet away from the boat in the middle of the Atlantic. And I looked and noticed that there was a letter in the bottle. And I just watched as it simply drifted away from view. And I thought, why didn't I say something? Why didn't I stop rowing and jump in and grab it? It would have been an amazing story to tell you here today. And, you know, why didn't I stop? I guess there were so many reasons not to. I was too focused on rowing. I was too fearful that the others would think I was chasing this childish dream. And I was too scared about not being able to swim back onto the boat. Human trafficking is a bit like that bottle that I failed to grab. It's hard to spot, and yet once we do hear about it or even see it, there's an ocean full of reasons why we choose to ignore it. We're too busy with life as usual, we're too slow to react, and we're certainly too worried about what other people will think of us. It means that we have to risk something, our comfort, our safety of life as normal. Life might never be the same again. And I often wonder, if I hadn't watched that film, would I still be on this bike spinning, not going anywhere? The fact is, you don't have to row the Atlantic, but we can all do something. And something simply means opening our eyes to some of the things that need changing in the world. It means allowing ourselves to be disturbed. It means pushing through even when it's tough and when we're fearful, just doing it afraid. It means jumping out of the boat, grabbing the bottle, and doing something, because something will change the world. And I am now swapping the boat for the bike, and we are about to embark on our next adventure, a big cycle for freedom, and touring through the UK in October. And you know, this week it was a really tough week. I was in that doing part of the dream, and it was so hard. But what I love is that going through these tough times, it brings something out of me that I didn't know existed. And I just want to say to you, if you have a dream, the extraordinary is not beyond you. Please don't just wish it, dream it, and do it.